Today is all about pruning mulberries. That's up next. Hello everyone, this is Dwayne with Edge of Nowhere Farm, and we're coming to you here today. It is February 6th, 2021. So as you can probably tell, we're right here in front of our chicken run area, and we've got 3 mulberries here, some ever-bearing mulberries that need to be pruned before spring fully sets in. It's a beautiful sunny day here today. I've got shorts on because it's 70 degrees here. We have our peach trees that have already broken dormancy, and it's just a matter of time before these mulberries follow suit. We're gonna have a few different types of mulberries, and we're gonna be doing a few different types of designs on these mulberries because of how we're utilizing them. So you're gonna get an idea of a few different ways that you might be able to prune your mulberries in order to shape them and increase production. We're gonna start with these Illinois ever-bearing mulberries that you see here. Again, these trees are specifically designed to give shade to our chicken coop and run. The area in front of me here is actually our western sky. So the western sun beats down on this side of this chicken run all summer long. We really want these to be a hedge that's gonna essentially give shade all the way across our chicken run here. So before we get started pruning today, let me go over the tools you're gonna need in order to get this done. First thing we're gonna do is I'm gonna be wearing gloves. Now that's because I am using sharp objects here. I do keep my pruners nice and sharp when I'm doing my pruning, so I wanna make sure I'm not cutting my hands. I'm concentrating on cutting those branches. Next thing you're gonna see me wearing would be some glasses. Now, we've had some experience with these small branches just whipping around, and Lori has actually been hit right in the eye with them. So I'm not gonna take any chances. I'll be using some safety glasses. Then of course, pruners. I like these Corona pruners, so these are my go-to. They're fairly inexpensive. I believe we have them in our Amazon shop. You can also find them at a Home Depot or a Lowe's, but these are really my go-to for cutting smaller limbs. Next would be a pair of loppers. These have seen better days, but these can cut about 1.5 inches. I think for the most part, I'm not gonna have anything that's gonna be bigger than this. However, if I did, I would also be utilizing a saw. So you can see this here has got some very aggressive teeth to it, specifically designed for cutting through and pruning off wood. First step, when it comes to these trees, we do keep wood chip mulch right up against the trunk here in Arizona. I'm gonna go ahead and pull that back so we get an idea of what these trees are gonna look like and where we need to start. Now that I have the mulch pulled back away from the tree, the first thing that I'm looking for is I'm looking to see whether or not I have any sucker growth. Now, mulberry trees, these in particular, we actually air layered ourselves from our old farm, and we already know that these are not on a rootstock. So mulberry trees can be planted a little deep, even here in Arizona. They will root out from the trunks, and they will give you a lot of sucker growth if given the opportunity. So now with this particular type of tree, it grows more like a bush. If you wanted to leave those sucker growths, you definitely could. We prefer not to have branching down quite that low. So besides sucker growth, I'm looking next at any branches that are down a little bit too far. I'm gonna go ahead and take those out so I have a clear area underneath the tree. So one of the things that we've talked about before is where you're making your cuts. You can see this tree's bleeding just a little bit because it's got some sap up in here. But you can see that we have the collar. So that's where you kind of have this volcano looking thing. So you've got it much wider here, and then it starts to taper down into where the branch is. You want to make your cut just past this collar that you have here. The reason being is you're going to have some dieback. This will die back as it heals over, and then that'll heal nice and clean and flat as this tree continues to grow. At this point, I've determined kind of the height of the tree. However, you can see I have some of these branches that are going straight down and then curling back up. And then I also have some branches that are gonna definitely be going down into the ground. So anything that I have that's pointing down, I definitely wanna be taking those off at this point. One more thing while I'm here, we're gonna start looking at crossing branches. You can see that I have a branch that's coming out here, and it's going almost up against this. It's not quite there, but it's going to. Remember, each one of these branches turns into essentially, not a trunk, but really thick, and it's gonna definitely start rubbing up against this piece here, and this is I'm gonna keep as a scaffolding or a piece of trunk. So I'm gonna go ahead, take the small one off there, and take that one off. I have a lot of branches that are in here They're rubbing up against the tree. You can see that with this one here, so it's going behind this branch here. So I already know anything that's crossing I need to take off. And while I'm here, just kind of looking at the tree, I have a branch that's coming this way, and I have a branch that's going back this way. Now, I like the way this one's growing. I have the opportunity for it to go up. You can see it's going up, also going towards the back. And also on my southern side, I'm gonna have a lot of sunshine coming in this way. So I wanna make sure I'm utilizing this branch to kind of come out from the tree and offer some additional shade. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna choose this branch here and go ahead and cut that one off. Now I don't have my cross here. Now I do have one that's actually crossing on the same branch. We'll get that off. And I have another branch in here that's crossing from the middle. This whole branch here is actually basically pointing straight down, if you can see that there. So while I'm here in the front, I'm gonna go ahead and take that one off as well. So I have some nice vertical branching here. I want that because I need this tree to continue to grow up. I have a lot of crossing branches in here and some of these smaller branches that are literally just pouring down from one to the next. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go through this tree, clean up the center just a little bit here, get rid of all my crossing branches at this point, and then we'll take a look and see what the tree looks like when I'm done. I'm able to get into the middle of the tree now. It actually gives me a really good view of how the tree looks in the center. Now typically with mulberry trees, you'll see this here as we get to the other types, is I like to have an open center. It just gets airflow through the middle of the tree and allows the fruit to ripen. Now these fruit are tiny, they're smaller than a dime. And so while we get production off of here, it's not the primary goal. It's mainly to block the chicken run from the sun. So as I'm looking in here, what I'm trying to figure out is whether or not I have balance in this tree. Each one of these branches as it goes from year to year is gonna get larger and larger. I wanna make sure that I have growth up and I need to have growth out, but at the same time, I know that as these branches get larger, they can't get in the way of each other. So as I'm looking at this, you'll see that I have a nice horizontal scaffold here. This one's gonna be okay, at least for now. I'm gonna let that come out here. You can see I have one here, I have one here facing that direction, one in here, so it's gonna be nice and dense, which is what I want. My challenge is this one right here. So you can see, right now this is a fairly small branch. However, this branch here is going to continue to get larger, and so will this, and those will absolutely cross. So while I want to make sure I have this scaffold here that continues towards the back of the run, I don't want to have that. So I'm going to go ahead and take that off. Again, right there at that collar, and nice and clean. I think that's going to probably do it for this tree. You can see took out a good amount of material. Generally speaking, you can be really aggressive with your mulberry trees. I could definitely take a lot more off as far as this tree is concerned. However, again, we're trying to establish this nice strong hedge coming across here, 2 feet or so off the ground, but then I want this thing nice and bushy all the way around to give some protection. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna essentially do this exact same thing and duplicate it on these 2 trees here. That'll give you a before and after of how these look. So you can see we break at about 2 feet or so, basically on all of these. So that's plenty of space for us to get up underneath there, do any work around the tree, also keep it cleaned up. And of course, we're in Arizona, snakes. So we wanna make sure we can see those if they're on the ground. And you can see we probably could come back and thin these out a bit more, but I think we've taken enough for this season. All right, that's how we do our hedge for our chicken run with our Illinois ever-bearing mulberries. Let's go take a look at another variety. What we have on these first two trees here, though, are something a little bit unique. These are contorted mulberries. So these first two trees you see just off of our patio. So I'm not going to do the production type pruning on these. I really want to prune these for shape because, as you can see, they look pretty unique with that contorted look. Now, these trees have a tendency to put on very small fruit, in fact, about the same size as those ever-bearing mulberries. So while we still will get production off of here, the idea is aesthetics and beauty. So we're gonna look at this tree a little bit differently. First thing, of course, I'm gonna look at is the bottom of the tree and kind of work our way up. I've already noticed we don't have any type of suckers at the base of the tree, so there's no issues there. As far as the balance, it's a fairly well-balanced tree, but one of the things we did to these trees when we first got them in is we had them caged up a little too tight for our rabbits and our rabbit pressure. We've since released them, but I have a lot of branches in here that are crossing. So I think what I'm gonna do is just go ahead and kind of get to it, point out a few things as we go. I'm looking at this branch here, and I know that I want to keep these up off the ground. This is pointing a little too far down, and as you can see, it's got a really crazy bend there because of how we had it caged. Now I also want to look at balance, so looking at the balance of the tree, this particular branch going out this direction actually looks pretty good. The only problem is the fact that it dips down and then, of course, that crazy wicked turn. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take and make a cut at a node with the hopes that the tree will put on growth there and continue to grow in the direction that I want it to. You can see the different nodes or buds that I have here. I have one that's facing up right there before I start to really make a hard dip. So what I want to do is encourage growth here and hopefully get one going this direction. So I'm going to take and give myself about 1/2 inch or so on an angle, make a cut. So now what I have is I have the dieback that'll occur here, and I should have given it enough space so that that node right there, or bud, can go ahead and bud out and hopefully branch this direction. A lot of this tree is going to be kind of like a bonsai, so a little bit of Miyagi Cobra Kai thing going on. So I'm just going to work my way up. I'm going to leave that there, move on to the next one. Probably could do a little bit more from this tree, but I want to see what kind of growth I get coming out this direction here. Now, one advantage, this side is the north side of this tree. So if I was going to make a harvesting notch, which you'll see here in a moment, I would do that on the north side. And of course, it's not going to get any heavy sunlight going in this direction. It's going to get it from the south, and it is going to get it from the west here. So I'm really hopeful that this will bush out really well for me, and this should look good. Okay, so now we're going to show you our Shangri-La mulberries and more of a traditional, more production pruning. Now we're going to wrap up with these 4 Shangri-La mulberries. So these are, at this point, our favorite mulberry. Just a beautiful, about 1.5 to 2 inch long, dark, black mulberry. Just amazing flavor. Tastes a lot like a blackberry without the tart. Just incredible. So we have these 4 trees that we air layered off of our Shangri-La on the old property. They've established really well. So these are production trees. So I am going to be establishing more of a bowl or open center on these trees. However, I need to establish a trunk first. We don't want them breaking quite as low as they are. However, I am going to keep the trunk about 1.5 to 2 feet off the ground. So the first thing I'm going to do is clean up the bottom of the tree. As far as the rest of the tree, again, I want an open center. I'm going to take this one here. That's going to encourage this to come out this way, and I still kind of need something heading that direction. I want that open. I think this is going to do it, at least for this year. I don't want to take any more material off. We've got plenty off of this tree. You can see how I'm starting to establish that open center or kind of vase look. I am going to have my harvesting notch. That'll make more sense as you see these in the future, but that's going to essentially be here where I can come into the tree on the north side. That's where I'm at now. Come into the tree on the north side and I can harvest inside of the tree. And then I think I'm ready to move on to the next. This last tree, it's very apparent to see how I'm creating the harvesting notch. I'm standing directly north on this tree. I have an open center that I'm starting to establish. Eventually, this will probably go away depending on how the rest of the tree comes and grows out. However, I will leave this area open, kind of like a pie. If you can imagine this tree much bigger, 10, 12, 15 feet tall and just as wide, I'm gonna leave this area open on the north side of the tree that doesn't get a tremendous amount of sunlight so that I'm able to walk into the middle of the tree and harvest on the inside of the tree. Very important also for ripening of that fruit. Okay, this one's done. The rest of those are done, so I think we're gonna call it. I should mention, if I haven't done it before, these trees have all been in the ground for less than a year. We planted them in March of 2020. We're here in February of 2021. So just under a year, these have had tremendous growth. So as you see me doing these heavy pruning cuts, mulberries are very forgiving. You can prune them a bit heavier than maybe some of your stone fruit or pome fruit. But one of the things here in Arizona is they grow very, very aggressively. We're able to be just as aggressive with our pruning cuts. One last thing. We will let these trees fruit this year. All of your fruiting wood, so everything that's gonna grow from these branches that are at least a year old, all of that branching can produce fruit, which is our ultimate goal. So just wanna thank you for joining us today. If you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel. If you have any questions or comments, leave those in the comment section down below. And our Amazon shop, I'll leave a link down in the description. That's a free, painless way to help support the channel. If you start with that link, it doesn't matter what you buy, you help to support us here. So just wanna thank you for joining us today and remind you, if we can farm on the edge of nowhere, so can you. Before it actually starts to break bud again and start flowering. Doesn't flower. Catkins, kind of a flower. Try that again.